Today we have Brittani Zmolik on the podcast. She's the owner of Brittani Zmolik Health, where she helps moms burn belly fat with her mentorship program. Brittani has been featured in media outlets like Reebok. She has been in the fitness industry for over 6 years, has helped hundreds of women, and she's a certified nutritionist. She's also a mom to 3 boys, an expert in gut health, and focuses on resetting the body naturally. We're super excited to have her on. Brittani, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so glad you asked me to come on. I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. And Brittani and I know each other already, and have met in person a number of times. And she's great. You know, works very hard, and definitely does a good job of balancing life. So that's probably the first question: is, you know, you have 3 young boys at home. Like, how do you balance? You have a lot of people listening to this. It's like, how do you balance being a business owner, being a mom, being a wife, homeowner, and all that stuff?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I know. So I have found that, like, we go through seasons. Sometimes I feel like, oh, I got it going on, like I'm rocking this. And then other days and times I'm like, oh my gosh, like what is even happening over here? Because it's crazy. And being a mom and having kids. My kids are like you said, 3 boys, 9, 7, and 5. And so they're in all the things, and our schedule is busy and whatnot. And so thankfully my husband's amazing, and he's a firefighter. So he, has that schedule, and he's able to help me quite a bit. And now they're actually all in school. So I have time to be able to, get my work done, but I have to be really focused and like plan it out. And I have to be super intentional to be able to get anything done, or else it's just, I don't get anything done, just typical. I just have to make the time and know what I'm doing. And when I notice I'm like, killing time, wasting time, I just got to get myself back on track for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure we'll definitely get into more of your productivity tips later on here. But yeah, so a lot of people look at you now and they probably see you. You look very fit. You look very healthy. But as we were even chatting about off air, like there were definitely some struggles leading up to where you are right now, before you even became a coach and before you've helped all these women. So let's start from the beginning. So what were things like for you growing up, and how did you get into fitness?
Yeah. Okay. So growing up, honestly, I was just kind of your normal, regular old gal. I was that skinny fat version, like, of someone that you always see. Like, I didn't have tons of weight to lose at all. I was just kind of lanky. I did dance. I did like drill team and soccer and different things like that. And so I never really, I mean, I was always active. And I wasn't ever very interested in, I guess you could say, like eating healthy and different things like that. And it kind of all changed for me actually whenever I went to college. Before I ever cared about it, my friends would always make fun of me and be like, oh my gosh, look at your plate. Like, I was the one that went through the line. I got all, like, my food was just white, bland. It was the potatoes, it was the mac and cheese, it was all the carbs. It was just like, I just did not eat very well at all. Didn't really work out. Just, your typical gal. And then I don't know, just one day I just kind of just saw somebody that was fit, and I saw her working out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she looks good. Like, I kind of want to put on some curves or some muscle. And like, I loved working hard, in school and different things like that. And so like, I knew that I loved that feeling of accomplishment, to set out on a goal and like achieve it and see it happen. So I basically knew nothing. And I just kind of went for it. Like, I just went into my college gym. I remember by myself, and there were like the athletes in there and the football player. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to do it. Who cares? I'm just going to try. So I did. And I started adjusting what I was eating, trying, eating more veggies, learned about protein, all of that. And then it just kind of started catching on, and I started noticing that like my body was changing. Like, I felt so much better. And I just kept getting into it and found that I just loved nutrition. I loved learning. I loved working hard and working out, even if I wasn't doing it all right. But I loved that sense of just accomplishment, like that I got inside of me. And nobody could do that for me. Like, I had to go and do it. I had to work hard. All of those things, it just kind of welled up something inside of me. And so that started my love for fitness and nutrition. And like I said, I just kind of started seeing that snowball. So then fast forward, I'm married, I have kids, I'm still doing the nutrition thing and super into it. My husband and I were super into CrossFit for 6-7 years. I became a trainer there. I handled the nutrition at our CrossFit gym there as well. And we did competitions. We did several things like that all the time. It was kind of a living and breathing type of a thing. It's, that CrossFit culture, like you really, if you know it, you get sucked in, and that was totally us. And then I had my third baby. And whenever I had him, I was actually right after I had him, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And what that is, it's an autoimmune disorder or disease of the thyroid. And so with that pregnancy, my little boy, actually, it was just a tough pregnancy, very, very different than my first two. I worked out with my first two, and, we didn't have any complications. This one was very different. He had a heart defect. And then there was some growth issues with him. And so it was a very high stress time in my life. And we went through heart surgery with him after he was born. And around that time after that was when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And before I was diagnosed, I was just not myself. Like my energy had tanked. I felt like I could not keep my eyes open. I just wasn't like me. I was so stressed all the time. I just felt like I had this brain fog. I couldn't lose weight. I felt like it looked like I was like 8 months pregnant, so bloated. Everything I ate just made me even more bloated. It felt like the more I was trying to work to get back to like my normal way of doing things in my life, the farther away I got from it. Things weren't working for me. So when I was diagnosed, I actually didn't even know what Hashimoto's was. I was completely unfamiliar with it. But I had to really change everything at that point for myself. So let me keep going.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously you just went through quite a bit here. I mean, like you said, growing up, you kind of got into fitness, then you even got into CrossFit. And actually, I want to stop at, obviously you just brought up something very serious and very important that happened after your last child was born. But I mean, like prior to having your third boy, so you didn't have like any problems, any complications with everything kind of like, did you even focus on your nutrition at all? Were you kind of just more so on the training side at that point?
With my third pregnancy, or what do you mean?
So good. Yeah. So basically like before your last pregnancy, like obviously after you were diagnosed with Hashimoto's, you had the complications with your third son. Would you say that you were really dialed in with your nutrition before then? Or would you say that you needed to be even more so, and that's where your kind of passion for it, or kind of the out of necessity happened afterwards?
Gotcha. So I was, or so I thought I was, right? So I really was pretty hardcore as far as being like a black and white thinker. It was kind of all or nothing for me all the time. As goes the CrossFit, kind of stigma with all of that. I ate paleo quite a bit, which was fine, but I cut a lot of carbs and this and that. I wasn't always super consistent, I would say. But I would say that I was focused more on the vanity metrics of things. I cared a lot more about that than my actual health. So that's the lens I looked through. And that's really the way that I approached quite a bit of everything that I did. And so when I had Jake and was diagnosed with all of that, that's when everything changed for me. That's when that passion kind of went from, oh, how much can I do? How much better can I look? How many less carbs can I eat? How much more quickly can I see results? How lean can I get? To, well, what do I need to do to feel my best, to be the best mom and version of me that I can be? What do I need to do to like heal my body basically from the inside out and just feel better and thrive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of took it from more of like you were focused pretty much just on like looks and vanity, looking at more black and white to now it's more holistic, right? It is health. And obviously that's the name of your business now is Brittani Zmolik Health. So, at this point, obviously you were diagnosed with Hashimoto's. You said you felt very bloated. So how long after your pregnancy was this? Was this like immediately? Did this kind of happen progressively?
It happened progressively. I would say it was probably about 8 months after I had him that I was diagnosed. And so that was, I mean, you're dealing with so much after you have a baby, plus when you already have kids, and with him, with his heart surgery and all of that. I tell my clients all the time, like, it was just like the perfect storm. Like, stress can wreak so much havoc on your body and your health. And that's really what happened with me, is it just took its toll. And I didn't know how to kind of put those puzzle pieces together, like you just said, like holistically wise, and what to do to take care of myself and preserve my health in that way. And so, yeah, I would say about 8, 9 months after I had him was when I was diagnosed.
Okay. So obviously a lot was changing at this point from a health standpoint. So like 8, 9 months post pregnancy, you're feeling like this, feeling bloated, highly stressed out. Like, what happens next?
So I got to the point to where I just felt like I couldn't even complete a sentence, like a thought in my brain, just such brain fog. And my husband and I actually had a different business at that point in time. And stress from that business, it was one that it was more physical work that we were doing. And so stress from that business, it was just the perfect storm. So I would say that's really when also he and I and like our family just truly found the Lord, found, he just brought us to our knees, like our foundation, like everything just had to like pause, and we had to take care of things. I just knew that, like, okay, something's wrong in all areas. I've got to get this right. Like, this isn't me. This isn't like the life that we want to live. Like, something's off. So I actually went to a holistic functional medicine doctor, and they ran several tests. They did a full blood panel on me, and then came back and we went in for results, and they told me that I did have Hashimoto's and Candida also in the gut. So that like I said, I was like, oh my gosh, like what are these things? What is that word? What are these words? And I was put on a super, super strict nutritional protocol and, diet, as you can say, but it wasn't for weight loss at all. It was just to get rid of the bad bacteria in my gut. Stress lives in your gut, and it can wreck you mentally and physically as well. And that's really where I was at. That's why I looked 8 months pregnant, and because I was so stressed. And then that Candida was just feeding off of basically everything that I was eating. And so I really had to change everything, and then change with my Hashimoto's. I had to go gluten-free, which I was not at that time. So I just had to change quite a bit with my diet and lifestyle. I had to completely stop CrossFit because that type of high intensity work was only raising my stress levels and raising my cortisol levels and making that belly bulge even more, and making my stress just increase and increase. And I needed to actually calm things down. Like, I needed to chill out from all levels.
Wow. So a lot of changes that you need to make. Obviously, a
A
very right,
lot.
like type A person to begin with. Businesses, families,
Yeah.
everything. But so I'm sure it was a complete shift in mentality for you at this point. So, what role for those who don't like understand and stress? Like, what role? If we can just, as an aside, before we continue with your story, what role does stress play in negatively impacting someone's health and their fat loss?
Hmm. It's massive. I tell my clients all the time, we want to think, everybody always looks at, let's look at weight loss and just cut our calories and let's up the workouts. And we don't really put much of the puzzle pieces together and look at our sleep and our stress and, digestion and kind of the way that all of that integrates together for us. And stress is a massive factor in us being able to lose weight and our body actually release that weight in a way that is enjoyable for us, that still gives us enough energy to be able to like live our lives and be moms and, you know, take care of other things as well. And so, like I said, it spikes those cortisol levels, our belly bulges. That's why we have so much bloat, along with most of the time the crappy food that we eat, you know, the highly processed foods, the sugars, different things like that. It's just all kind of that perfect storm for us, and it can keep us stuck mentally and physically for years and years.
Mm. So what are some things, so you mentioned obviously you cut out CrossFit, you stopped doing that specifically, you changed, like you said, you became gluten-free. Like what are some specific action steps just in general you took to decrease stress in your life?
Ooh, that's a good one. You know, it's funny and it's silly when you look back on it, but I didn't understand that me stressing about the problem, which was my big bloated belly, I became kind of obsessed with that. And I would do, you know, do good one day, eat perfect. And then I would wake up and nothing had changed. And then it was like, I would bawl and cry. And it was the same cycle over and over and over again until it finally hit me that, oh my gosh, the stress about stressing out about this is what's keeping me stuck. So to be honest, I just had to focus. One thing is I had to focus on the actions versus the results. And I had to give time for it to work. I had to like give it space and remove the timeline because I wanted to see results right then, because I was changing so much in my life and I was at such a low, hard place that I was like, well, I'm doing all this work. I'm changing it. I deserve to see these results super quickly. And I think at that point, I was still more interested in kind of those vanity metrics. It hadn't quite really kicked in and clicked for me just yet. And so one thing was focusing on the actual actions within the day versus expecting to see a massive change the next day, you know, and that goes for I tell my clients that also, if we can like stop looking at the scale and expecting to see a massive change within 2 days of doing something and just focus on what you're actually doing and the actions, it's going to remove so much of that timeline and that pressure and just make you honestly enjoy what you're doing more. And when that happens, stress about that actually, it just naturally goes away or, you know, lessens. And so that's one thing. Another thing is I had never really been someone, like I said, I was an all or nothing. I was a go, go, go. So sleep wasn't a massive priority for me. I've never been someone that I'm like, oh, I just love to sleep. I would stay up late working and building, you know, my business and working on things. And then I would get up super, super early and do the exact same thing. And so once again, I did not realize that my sleep and my stress affected my weight gain and my belly bloat and not being able to think clearly. It just wasn't all together. So once I started to realize that they were connected, I started prioritizing sleep quite a bit more, making sure that I got solid sleep. I wouldn't brew a cup of coffee at like 8:30 p.m. now and stay up until like 2 a.m. working. Like I really prioritized my health in that way also.
Yeah, so I think that's hard. What you just said there is great. I think that's hard for a lot of, you know, moms or parents to just to comprehend. It's like I have so many things going on. Like, how can I prioritize myself? Like how I think a lot of moms struggle with that too. It's like, well, I have so many other people who need me. Like, how can I prioritize myself? So how did you make the choice to prioritize yourself and your health at that point?
Hmm, that's a good question. So I think I was at a point to where I knew that like I physically, mentally, like I had to fix it. I had to make these changes. And everything I had been doing wasn't working. So I actually did hire a coach and someone that knew about this and knew how to help me. And she explained it to me and she talked through and just helped me to see. It's not that I saw everything immediately or I did everything immediately, but over time, I just became more open to looking at things a different way, and actually kind of became more okay with not being as hardcore with things and living in kind of that gray area of not having to do everything so extreme. And when I did that, I was like, okay, it's not actually as difficult because I felt better because I was sleeping more. And I had removed somewhat of this timeline, and I just focused more on trying to like become a healthy person, like from the inside out, like truly care about not just the vanity metrics, like I mentioned earlier, and seeing how lean I can be, but like how good I needed to feel so that I could be there for my babies, for my husband, and for every other area of my life. And so it kind of went from doing things that a healthier person would do to like the mindset of, no, this is what I do. This is who I am. I need to become this person. And time with that and with doing the actions, just eventually it just integrated into my everyday and my baseline and the normal things that I do, if that makes sense.
Love it. Yeah. So you obviously just focused on the actions and the
Yeah.
becoming, and then the results happen as a result. So, 8 to 9 months after the pregnancy, so you were diagnosed with Hashimoto's, you had all this bloating. How long did it take from you to go from that to kind of more so where you are now, where obviously people look at you and you're very lean, looking fit and healthy?
Ooh, it was, I want to say it was a solid year. It was not a quick fix. I did not.
I want to pause you right there for everyone listening. It didn't take 30 days, didn't take 90 days. She said a year.
Yeah, like solid year. Um, because I was going through so much mentally also, and I was so stuck in my ways that I didn't want to listen, and I didn't want to understand that I fought the fact that it was going to take time, because it was actually real change that needed to happen, not just like doing something for 30 days to make it happen.
Love that. Love
Yeah.
that mentality. And it's one that, I think we all go through at some point, is realizing that, right, it's not a quick fix. It is something that will take time. And so what are some of the, you said like you hired a coach at this point, like what were some of the other things that you learned during this year? Like what were some things you did differently? And what were some of the habits that you also built?
Yes. Okay. So as far as I mentioned, like staying up late and waking up early. So I started going to bed much earlier. And that was not super easy at first, because obviously like I'm like, oh, I can get all my work done. I can do so much. The kids are asleep, especially when Christopher, my husband, was gone. Like I was like, I have all this time to myself. Or I wasn't really one that would like watch all the TV. I just wanted to get everything done. And like you said earlier, just go, go, go. But so I started to kind of focus on activating my parasympathetic nervous system throughout my day. I would go for walks. I would go outside. I would do things that would help me stay in a calmer state as best I could. And I really started to notice the way that I would start to feel when stressful situations would come up, with the kids or somebody else or something. Like there's certain things, that stressors that we can control in our lives and eliminate so much of it. But then there's also so much that we can't eliminate, that's just life, especially when you have kids and you have a family. There's a lot of things that we can't control out of that. But I started realizing that I can control how I reacted to those things. So I really paid attention to that. I started doing some journaling. I really started to, like I said, just use that time to kind of clear my mind and just think through things. I did a lot of like positive affirmations also. I really put my mind where I needed it to be, instead of letting my mind wander to all of the negative things or the stressors. I kind of controlled that with, if I found something on YouTube or calming music, stuff like that was really, really big for me. And so I started I did that. I started making sure I went to bed earlier. I cut out caffeine at certain time, after a certain time of the day. So I was tired. And then I kept my waking up not as early, but I did wake up earlier. But in that time, instead of jumping straight into work again and doing as much as I could and feeling like once again it was that adrenaline, like go, go, go still. And I still do it to this day. I just reserve those earlier morning hour when I wake up. That's my quiet time. That's the time that I fill myself up, fill my cup up. For me, it's quiet time with the Lord, and, just listening and kind of get myself ready for the day. And so I really started kind of bookending my days like that. And it really helped me to just kind of maintain that calmer state, I would say, throughout a crazy, chaotic day. And those are things that have stuck with me and stayed with me. That's stuff that I teach my clients, is really prioritizing that time for yourself as best you can. We implement a lot of walking in our programs also, because it really does help get you in that parasympathetic state. It lowers those cortisol levels, and it just keeps, but it keeps your activity up. So you can still be doing and being active, but you're also like calming those nerves there.
For sure. So definitely made a lot of changes, a lot of, relaxing, de-stressing, more recovery, more positive affirmations, focusing on your mental health. So since then, like what have your what is like your nutrition? What does your training look like now?
Mhm. So in all of that, I definitely had to change both of those things. Like I mentioned, like I had to stop CrossFit. I implemented a lot of walking. I actually took quite a bit of a break against my will. I did not want to, but I was like, all right, I was just at the point where I knew I had to do something. And so the coach that I had hired really encouraged and told me to do that. I did a little bit, but not much. And that was hard for me to kind of chill. But it helped me so much. And so then after a bit of time, I gradually got, back into just strength training. And that transition going back into just normal strength training, your traditional strength training, not with the circuits, not necessarily with like high intensity work, not doing an AMRAP or like working so hard that you feel like you're just going to die at the end of it. I had to do a lot of mental work to get around like understanding, hey, I'm still working and moving my body. It's just in a way that actually like supports like my health also, not just like my fitness, like what you see from the eye. So I had to really adjust that. And after a while, it became normal. And that's what I do today. I do include today, I can do, a little more circuit hit style stuff, but I still am very careful with it. It is not the core of my training and my programming at all. Because I know if I were to go back to that and go super hardcore again, I would have a flare up, and it would affect me. So that's my training. Now, nutrition wise, I really had to, from the beginning, went on a very low inflammatory diet. We had to get rid of the candida and different things like that. But I really ate much more whole foods, a lot of smoothies, a lot of fruits, veggies, different things like that, a lot more carbs than I was used to. And so that was a mental shift and block that I kind of had to get around also. And to this day, I have kept so much of that. And that is just like a normal part of my nutrition, my everyday nutrition. I eat very, very simplified. I try to do as many just whole foods as possible, as much non-processed foods as I can, just because I know that it truly makes me feel better. It still helps my gut so much to eat less processed foods than processed foods or artificial sugars and different things like that. Like those things can still mess with my gut. So I really keep those things in check. And whenever I keep my stress levels and my routines, kind of working with me, it's just like that safety net that really supports me today to be able to, really not notice that I have Hashimoto's or anything like that. Like, it's just kind of it's just the way I do things now. And it didn't happen overnight, and it's been a transition. And it's a lot of the mental work and things that you have to learn and just be okay with trial and error. But it has, I've really changed a lot of what the way I lived and the way I did things to now. But I mean, it's so worth it. Like, you can't replace your health, really. So,
Yeah, so true. So many, so much wisdom there, so many life lessons. So one thing you mentioned as well was, fixing your gut. And we had talked, before we started recording here about gut health. So for those, this is kind of a trendy topic nowadays. Like, what is gut health? How do you identify if you have an issue with your gut?
mm, yeah, it's a sea of information. And there are so many things that are, that are out there and conflicting things and this and that. For me, it was definitely brain fog, not being able to feel like I could complete those just thoughts in my brain and get things out or know what I needed to do next, kind of a thing. And just feeling productive, feeling like I was like present in my body, is definitely a big sign. And then, bloating, especially for a female, I mean, it's normal. There's a normal amount of bloating, but if it's something that is massively super distended, and feeling like you have stomach aches all the time, and if you really especially notice that you have stomach aches when you are stressed also, because I did mention, we hold so much stress in our gut, and just kind of creates that perfect storm for us. Also, of course, like bowel movements and patterns and different things like that, are a big sign also of a healthy gut or an unhealthy gut. And just really overall, just your quality of life and your energy levels, also really contribute to that. So there's several different signs, several different, and like we said, there's so many things that you can do, without even having to really go to a doctor or take, 800 supplements. There's so many things that you can do just naturally with your diet, with food and lifestyle changes and different things you can implement that can really make a big, big difference, for somebody.
So what are maybe a couple of those key things that someone could change or work on?
Yeah. Okay. So like walking, like I mentioned, for sure is one of them. Like, aim to get outside, even if it's just 15, 20 minutes a day, outside if you can. And then second would be a treadmill, but it just does something for us when we are outside, when we feel the wind on our skin, when we have sunshine on us, when you hear the birds and leaves, like it just truly sets you in a calm state, which is activating your parasympathetic nervous system, helping, to heal and calm and soothe your gut at that point. So I would say definitely walking. I would also look at the amount of like packaged processed foods that you're eating. And you don't have to, I mean, I do eat, definitely today I eat much more, processed stuff. It's still not that much, but than I did in the past, because I've built my gut back up, over time. But I never want to get back to where it's mostly, processed foods and not really giving my body nutrients. So I would look at that, and just give it a good balance. See where you can incorporate more whole foods, lean proteins, veggies, fruits, different things like that, carbs, good healthy fats. So really just kind of paying attention to that. Your sleep quality is going to be good, or a big factor in you feeling like you're mentally prepared to do the things that you need to do, but it also truly helps your body to just reset. And it helps keep those stress levels down also. What else? I mean,
Yeah,
those things are big things that can really help.
for sure. And, kind of a common theme I'm seeing you talking about across no matter what the issues are, right? Like sleep is important, stress, diet, exercise, like all four of those things seem to be just a key component for pretty much
Yeah.
everything.
Yep.
Uh,
Absolutely.
All right. So, now you're obviously, like you said, mama three, and we talked about like getting back to the productivity. Like, how do you manage this? Like, that's like one of the biggest challenges a lot of people who even, we talk to as well really struggle with is just, managing their time, managing their priorities. So how do you go about in your life making sure that your health is priority? What are some of your productivity tips that you use?
Mm. So one, I would say at this point now, it's just kind of what I do, just like you. It's just what we do. It's just a part of our routine. At first, it was not, right? When we first start, it's not a part of our routine. So I gave myself grace, and gave myself time to fail, because we're going to fail. But the bigger things would be to really see and one, make the decision that, hey, like, this is worth it. I do need to put some more effort and time and be able to kind of be a little more flexible and move things around to fit a workout in, or to fit planning my day out, or prepping for the next day in, and let that be a priority. And it doesn't always, I had to realize, it won't always have to take up as much time as it does right now if you're starting out, because you're learning a new skill. And just like when we go to work, when we are training for a different position or a brand new job, like we give ourselves grace for that. Like, hey, I don't know this. I'm learning a new software. I'm learning this. I'm learning that. But for some reason, we don't always give ourselves that grace when we are trying to lose weight. We expect massive changes quickly. We try to drastically change everything, maybe too quickly. And we expect to just get it right. And if we don't get it right, or we fall off, we're done with it. It didn't work, or whatever the case may be. And so thinking of it as, hey, you're learning new skills, like, give yourself time. And, like, that's why it's so great to work with you, to work with a coach, just to be able to have someone tell you that, and say, hey, you're doing okay. Just try again. Like, give yourself time to practice the skills, because once you get the skills down, it's going to kind of be like when we put Alexa on, like, in our house, and she plays in the background, like, we don't notice it. It's just there, and it's just soothing for us. And it just is part of our day. That's where we want to get to with all of our clients, is eventually it's just going to be a part of your baseline. It'll be a part of your day, like but it's not going to be at the beginning. So give yourself grace for that, and know that the habits you're forming will help you to just let it be a part of your normal everyday time. So do that, but plan and put it on your calendar, and make it important, because it is important. And realize that if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? We really don't have all the time in the world. And I think as women, we tell ourselves that a lot, like, oh, I can do it later. Oh, I'll do it when the kids, oh, I don't have time, or whatever. But you do. And so kind of find that line of where am I kind of just like putting my excuses before actually putting the work in. And so just kind of being tough with yourself as well, I would say. Something also, I just did a call for a program I'm doing this morning, and I just got off of it, and I told the girls, you have to find what works for you. If you're not somebody that cooks right now, and you like think and expect to be cooking like that, I think we see online a lot, like, okay, a perfect picture of like all this meal prepped food for the next 10 days. And, you see it in like the little containers, and like, it's just like, oh my gosh. Or on Pinterest, like the family that's sitting down eating, and it's all healthy food, and everybody is just, no one's fighting, no one's arguing. It's just perfect. The house isn't a mess. Like, I think that we look at those things online, and we put them on a pedestal, and we think that we can never be healthy until we can do those things. And that keeps a lot of people stuck. It keeps them like feeling like, well, I have to be able to meal prep for like 10 days before I can even be successful. And I mean, that keeps people from like starting. So kind of really look at that and say, you know what? I don't have to do it that way. I don't have to do it that way. That's the beauty of a coach, of working with you, or, anyone, is just being able to find what works for you. If you don't like to cook, you don't have to cook necessarily. You can make it super simple, and you can still lose weight. You can find the best way that works for you to be consistent. And so just really being realistic with things is really important. If you need to use the crock pot every night, use it. Just do it and be consistent and find what works for you, is what I would say.
Love it. So what works for you then, as far as like, what does your weekly meal prep look like?
Yeah. So what we usually do, I'm not one that like preps and puts in containers and does all of that. Like I have literally, I told the girls on the call this morning, I was like, if I waited to do that, I would still be waiting. I have never done that because it just doesn't, I don't know. I just haven't done it. And so for me, usually we will cook kind of like a big batch of grilled chicken or, like lean turkey, something like that at the beginning of the week. And so we usually like have proteins cooked and we usually eat those for lunches, or here recently it's been for dinner too, because like my kids are in soccer and baseball at the same time. And so our schedules, we basically have 2 to 3 things every single night. And so unfortunately, as bad as I hate to say it, like in this season, we really like sitting down at the table for a family dinner it hasn't been as often. And I don't love that, but it's just kind of the season we're in. And so I've had to kind of adjust those things. And so most of the time it's super simple food. It's super quick. It's an apple and peanut butter. Like before I got on here with you, I just had 2 boiled eggs. I'll get like a grain-free, gluten-free pita and put some turkey meat and cheese and, do a little sandwich for lunch. Like it's just super simple stuff. I'm not trying to like reinvent the wheel every week either. I eat kind of the same things, but I always have, like I said, we usually have like the protein already prepped and then I just put other stuff with it that is a super simple thing I can throw together.
Right. And so you keep it super simple, right? Eat very similar things. And I think honestly that works well for a lot of parents too, because
Yeah.
if you're trying to come up with 21 different meals every single week, it's just overwhelming. And you said you have 2 or 3 things every night. So for you, it sounds like routine is really a big part of it too.
It is. Yeah, it is. I think the kids have gotten used to it also, even though it changes, they kind of get, okay, this is what we're doing. We're done kind of a thing, like in and out so we can move on with it. But yeah, routine for sure. And the fact that my husband is here quite often is helpful, but he's also gone quite a bit too, because he's a firefighter and our schedule doesn't stop. So I've had to kind of, find those routines that work for us also when he's gone. And that's taken time, you fail, you just try again the next day. And kind of just figuring it out that way.
Yep, trial and error. Good old trial and
Yep,
error.
exactly.
What are maybe 1 or 2 things that we haven't already gone through that you used to believe about fitness or health or nutrition that you no longer believe or have shifted your views on?
Oh, gosh. Hmm. Okay, so one would be that the leaner person, if you're looking at 2 different people, the leaner person is the healthier person. Um, I think a lot of the time we look at, things on Instagram or wherever, and we look at someone that's ripped, that has the abs and all of the things, and oh my gosh, they're the epitome of health. Um, but going through what I've gone through, and really having to learn about health and what that really means for me, I've had to learn that that's definitely not always true. It's possible to be really fit and look a certain way and get to your goal and be miserable. And I don't want to do that. I want to look the way I want to look. I want to look lean and fit and all of the things and reach my goals, but I want to do it in a way to where I don't have to like say goodbye to the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? And so I think I used to think that it goes back to that all or nothing mentality. But just really learning about health has shifted, and experiencing it too has really shifted that mindset for me. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely. Um, Anything else that we haven't covered so far that you have really dived into in your lifestyle, or things that you coach your clients on that you think would be important for our audience to know?
I think I've somewhat alluded to it and mentioned it, but I would say that, like I just mentioned, you can get to your goal and kind of be miserable or feel like you're not mentally growing or spiritually growing in the process. And personally, to me, that's a lot of wasted time. I think there's a way to do it to where you are growing as a person, spiritually, mentally, and you are bettering and enhancing your life at the same time. It can absolutely be done. You don't have to leave everything else to just crumble and fall. I think that that would be what I, that's basically my mission of what I want to show women and help them to just understand, that you can get to where you want to be in a healthy way that can actually last for you. And you can build your family and teach your family too, how to be healthy, and become that healthy person from the inside out.
Love it. Love it. So I want to finish with two questions. So the first question is, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I am on Facebook and Instagram. Um, I'm on Instagram primarily, and that's just at Brittani Zmolik Health. And then I do have a private group where I go live every Thursday and just do a different training or teaching. And that's on Facebook. So, but if you find me on Instagram, you can get everything else from there.
Absolutely. And we'll link those in the show notes. And last question that I always like to end on is, let's say we're fast forwarding, it's the end of your life.
Hmm.
You've achieved everything that you've wanted to achieve. You've lived out all the experiences that you've wanted to live. How do you want to be remembered?
Mm. I would say ultimately I would want to be remembered as someone that loved Jesus, died loving him, um, and showing that love to other people. Someone that cares about other people, and truly just is genuine and truly invested in others' well-being, really.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks so much for sharing that and sharing everything. Anyone who listened to this episode, I know will take away at least a thing or two, and we really appreciate.
Oh,
Yeah, we really appreciate your time.
awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Luke. I really appreciate it. This was so much fun.